I'm Ms. Roberts, one of your research librarians. Ms. Hiltner is here, and we are delighted today to be welcoming um, a very celebrated international author here at the Academies of Loudoun. Um, we've gathered here this morning to hear from the renowned international author B.J. Mohan. It's right here. 1 second. He's currently visiting the United States from southern India, Tamil Nadu to be exact, a state in the southeasternmost part of India. And I'm very pleased he accepted our invitation to come speak with us here today at the Academies of Loudoun. With a literary career spanning over 3 decades, Jeyamohan has captivated readers with his profound storytelling, rich in cultural and philosophical insights. A prolific writer, his work includes multiple novels, short stories, volumes of literary criticism, writer biographies, introductory texts to Indian and Western literature, books on philosophy, numerous other translations and collections, children's books, and more recently, screenplays. 2 of his books have recently been translated into English, and I think it's exciting for English-speaking readers to now have access to his work. His collection of short stories, Stories of the True, was translated into English and published in 2022. The stories are fictionalized accounts of real people and their struggles, people trying to find a righteous way to live. I've read all the stories, and some more than once. They're filled with inspiration and positivity, as well as great hardship and clear moral dilemmas. Jeyamohan's journey as a writer is deeply entwined with his exploration of India's diverse literary and classical conditions. His ability to weave complex characters and intricate plots has earned him a place among the literary greats of our time. We have the unique opportunity to delve into the mind of a writer whose words have inspired and challenged readers across generations. In particular, he will be sharing with us his thoughts on the human search for ethical moorings in a world of rapid change. Please join me now in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Jeyamohan.
Thank you. Good morning, young friends. Imagine 8,000 miles or 14,000 kilometers. I am coming from that distance. I am from India. My native place is Nagarcoil, which is very close to the peninsula of India, the tip of the peninsula of India. So I am coming from an entirely different culture, an entirely different social scenario. And actually, I have nothing common with you, culturally or morally. So I'm entirely different space here. So, and I have to say another thing. I know 2 languages, Tamil and Malayalam, and I'm well versed in that 2 languages. I can understand Sanskrit. I can manage to speak in English. So my English is not good, I know. So English not my language. So my accent is entirely different to you. It is very difficult to you to understand my accent, I know. So please be patient to listen me. Please give some time to understand me. Okay. So I have a favorite line of Robinson Jeffers. I am truly alien here, believe me not. I am truly alien here, believe me not. So don't believe me, just try to listen me. Friends, few days back ago, We had a conversation with an American friend at Raleigh, at the home of my close friend Rajan Somasundaram. We had a conversation with American friend. He's a scientist. He's working in some biology area, I think. He asked me one question: what's the role of literature and philosophy in science? He's a scientist. And he again asked me, what's the role of science, what the role of his literature and philosophy in his life? That's an interesting question. And there was a dismissal note in that question. And actually, he feels that there is no role of literature and philosophy in the life of a scientist. Generally, I know throughout the world, scientists believe that. And in America, that belief is actually a prevailing idea. The source of that idea is, I can remember few names. One name is Mr. Richard Feynman. I don't know whether I am pronouncing correctly. Richard Feynman has a, his famous book is um, Surely You Are Joking, Mr. Feynman. Surely You Are Joking, Mr. Feynman. His book is very famous one. In this book, totally, he is totally dismissing philosophy. He says philosophy is a kind of fun. He is actually mocking great philosophers like Nietzsche, Kant, Hegel, and Schopenhauer. He says he and his son used to play with philosophical ideas. He, he and his son used to make fun with philosophy. So he says the only use of philosophy is a kind of joke. That's all. Another popular idea is from that book written by Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion. In that book, he is dismissing the entire metaphysical element. He says metaphysics is something nonsense, a kind of nonsense human being created a few years back, and it has no role in modern thought. These ideas are influencing our modern scientists and modern science students today. So I have to answer some answer for this question. Friends, there is another side for this thought. Modern linguistics, modern philosophies of linguistics, they are dismissing science. They say science is nothing more than a story. It's a grand narration only. They say a set of people, they are commonly accepting some ideas, and they are propagating that ideas as truth. That is science. So what is a science theory? It's a commonly accepted idea. It's a peer accepted idea. It's science. It's a theory. That's the idea of Barth or Roland Barthes or Derrida or modern postmodernists. So I cannot take the two extreme sides. So I have to say only one thing. I know that science has its own tools. Science can explain everything in the world. It has its own philosophy, its own perception of the world, and it has its own logical system. But some questions science science cannot answer. Some questions are there. For example, one question: what is the spirit behind science? Throughout the world, a lot of people are in the pursuit of truth through science. They are devoting their entire life to science. What is the spirit behind it? You can easily say that uh, science is actually working for better conditions of life, or better consumption, or making this world more livable. But that are the purposes of technology, not science. Science is actually working for knowledge for knowledge's sake. Science has no other intentions. Science is actually working only for knowledge. So, what is this purpose of knowledge? Why science has this pursuit of knowledge? What is the spirit of knowledge? Why millions of people are working in knowledge, in science? What's the spirit driving them? You cannot explain it through science. You can explain it through only through metaphysics only. If there is an answer, it is only a metaphysical answer. That's the only answer I can give you. Dear friends, here I was asked by my friend to say some words about the relation between science and literature and philosophy. I can see I can say two things. One is very practical and very practical perception. Literature is a grand collection of microdata. It's a grand collection of microdata. For more than 10,000 years, literature is collecting the microdata of life, human life. And it's a huge body of microdata. That data is very useful for any scientist. In any field of science, that microdata is a huge source of knowledge. That's the practical use of literature. Why you all should read literature? That question I would answer like this. You need microdata to analyze your theories of science. That's why you should read literature. So I'm a person who is creating immense microdata on Tamil life and Tamil culture, and you can use it. That's the practical side of literature. And there is another spiritual side or intellectual side, or there is another assumptions in it. First, humans have three kind of perception on life. One is logic, and another one is imagination, and another one is intuition. And literature is part of imagination. Logic is very objective, and science is working on objective logic. Intuition is entirely different. It is very subjective one, but it has its role in every kind of knowledge. It has its role in science also. Imagination is a pathway between logic and intuition. Through imagination, you can go from logic to intuition. That's why imagination is most important to uh, any kind of knowledge. And science is a kind of knowledge. So science also needed this imagination faculty. That's why I implore every scientist to read literature. I don't know whether I am making myself clear. I don't know, but okay, I'll try to say something. Same. So, what is intuition? Here, I have to say something from my lore of knowledge. My background is Indian philosophy, particularly Vedantic philosophy. I have to something. I have to say something. The one thing is, in Vedanta, there are three kinds of perception of the universe. One is pratyaksha, another one is anumana, and another third one is shruti. Shruti. Pratyaksha means objective knowledge. Objective knowledge is pratyaksha. Shruti is a priori, like in Greek philosophy, it is called a priori. You can say that previous knowledge. Previous knowledge. It is Shruti. Every knowledge is understood by previous knowledge. If there is no previous knowledge, you cannot understand a fresh knowledge. If you have no previous knowledge, you cannot understand anything before your eyes. So, what is that previous knowledge? If you are understanding, you're trying to understand a few new things, Actually, you are applying the whole previous knowledge on it and you are defining it. So the previous knowledge is always with you. That previous knowledge is in the language. At the age of 1 or 2, you are getting your language and you are getting a whole collection of previous knowledge. And you are extending your knowledge throughout your life. You are actually extending your knowledge. That is what called intuition. Then, what's the previous knowledge before language? This is your biological knowledge. Your body has its knowledge. There is a knowledge in your body. There is knowledge in your in your biological system. That's a priori. There's an previous knowledge in your body. So what is the previous knowledge before that? There is a genetic knowledge. So what is the knowledge before genetic knowledge? There is knowledge of the nature. Entire nature has its own knowledge, and you are the part of it. So what is the knowledge before that? It is, you may call it cosmic knowledge. The cosmic knowledge is the permanent knowledge in this universe. You are actually having a drop of that knowledge in your body and mind by birth. And actually, you are continuously extending it. That's the idea of Vedanta. You are continuously extending. Any knowledge is extension of knowledge. It is not new knowledge. So for extending that knowledge, you must have intuition. That's what we call intuition. Extension of that previous knowledge. You need a kind of intuition. You have to connect with it. So the two way of knowledge. One is logic. In logic, you are severing, you are distancing yourself from the nature and the universe, and you are trying to understand it. In intuition, actually, you are conforming yourself with the nature. Actually, you are uniting with the nature. You are being one with the nature and the cosmos. You are having some knowledge. So, what is the role of anumana? Anumana means guessing. Anumana is connecting that logical knowledge or pratyaksha knowledge or objective knowledge with this intuition is anumana, and it is the role of literature in every kind of knowledge. So any science has a very strong role of imagination in it. You are studying logic, I know, but you have to develop your imagination faculty to connect with your intuition. I know Richard Feynman was a great scholar in physics, but why he was better scientist than others? Because he has an intuition, and he had find some way to connect that logic with his intuition. That's the answer of Vedanta. Friends, so I am coming back to the first question. Why humans are running behind the knowledge? What's the quest leading human beings towards science? What is the spirit of science? 10 years back, 10 years ago, I went to Africa and I saw some ant hills there. Huge ant hills, nearly 30 to 50 feet height over the earth and nearly 50 to 60 feet under the earth. Comparing to the size of an ant, these ant hills are big cities, bigger than New York, big, huge cities. These cities have their own highways inside, their own water system, their own air circulation system inside. There are various areas inside the hills, in the ant hills. Residential area, storage area for women, area for men. They have a very complicated engineering system in that ant hills. A single ant lifespan is only 1 week or 10 days. and it is very tiny. You cannot imagine that anthill. Some of these anthills are 3,000 years old, living organs, 3,000 years old institutions. They are. So where is this this engineering in this ant? Which ant know this engineering of the city? You can easily say that it is in their collective unconscious. The entire city, the entire anthill, the design of the anthill, the engineering of the anthill in the collective unconscious of the ants. A single ant can never understand an anthill. A single ant can never understand the purpose of this anthill. But it is doing its job. I can imagine human knowledge like this. Friends, for more than 20,000 or 30,000 years, humans are collecting knowledge objectively. They are collecting knowledge as a huge form outside their culture. I'm a huge admirer of cave arts and used to travel to see cave arts. Some of Indian cave arts is 50,000 years old. And we can see a lot of intricate and artistic works in the caves. So the human knowledge has 50,000 or 60,000 years old, human knowledge. So we are collecting knowledge for more than 50,000 years continuously. And it is now a huge bulk outside our culture. We invented clay plates, then palm leaves, papyrus, then computer, then now cloud system is there. We are collecting our knowledge. Continuously, we are creating a huge bulk of knowledge. What is the role of a single scientist in that collection? He can never understand it. He can never explain it. Easily, you can say nearly 1 million or 2 million people are doing science research today. Only a few can get a Nobel Prize. Only a few can invent something really new. So, can we say that the rest of the people are actually wasting their life? Actually, they are wasting life in a sense, in the materialistic sense, they are wasting their life. They are devoting the entire life for science. And after 50 or 60 years, they found nothing in their hand. So easily a commoner can say that this guy is wasting his life. But they are not wasting their life. They are doing something that they cannot understand. They are contributing to the grand collection of knowledge, like that ant, single ant. The ant is collecting some grains of sand out from outside, and it is placing it inside that ant hill, and it dies peacefully. It cannot ask the question that what's the purpose of this ant hill. It is totally beyond it. Like me, I'm writing novels, huge novels. I devoted entire life, more than 40 years, to literature. So, how can I understand the worth of my literature, my work? People may forget me within few years. A lot of major literary giants are being forgotten in this time. A few years back, New York Times published an article, Forgotten Geniuses of Literature. And they gave a big list of writers. And some are very close to me. So uh, I am a great fan of Nathaniel Hawthorne. But in that list, her name was there. His name was there. And Vladimir Nabokov, his name was on that list. And it was a big shock to me to see that forgotten genius. That's a very, very, very kind of oxymoron. Like forgotten genius. But sure, geniuses are being forgotten. So, what's the role of a genius in this grand collection of knowledge? He is just collecting some grains of sand and adding to this anthill. I'm doing this, and I know that Tolstoy is a big ant. Dostoevsky is a big ant, and Jeyamohan is another ant. We are collecting grains of sand and creating this big anthill. So every scientist is doing the same. You cannot ask the question, what is the meaning of my work? What is the meaning of my spirit? Where I am going? What is the role of human knowledge in history? There are a lot of answers given by various philosophers. I think Hegel says actually humanity is creating a better society, a better system is actually in the making. That's why history is moving towards it. And he calls it historical materialism. And Nietzsche says Uberman. Humanity is actually moving towards a creation of a Superman. I mean, Uberman, Ubermensch. That's his idea. That all simple assumptions, simple ideas. You cannot prove it. There's no meaning in believing it. The answer is you can never say that. Can any scientist say what will be the future of humanity after 1,000 years? What will be the technology of humanity after 100 years? Cannot say. Before coming here, I was reading an article published in Science magazine 20 years back. I read it with high enthusiasm 20 years, 20, no, 30 years back. In it, he says these are going to be the reality in within 30 years. Few for futuristic statements are there. And when I am reading now, the entire article became a nonsense. Nothing happened. He says unlimited energy will be there in 2020s. No, it's not there. And he says flying cars will be here. And he says humanity will be one without any racial difference. So every futuristic statements become a nonsense within a generation, within 30 years. So we cannot say what is going to happen within 50 years. So what we can assume is, I am here to do this. So I am coming to my favorite book, the major book of my system, that is Vedanta, is Gita, Bhagavad Gita. It's not a religious book. It's not a book written by God. It is a book written by a king like Solomon or Marcus Aurelius, nearly 3,500 years back. Krishna was a king, Yadava king. He is a lived person. He wrote this book. It is a philosophical text only. You can read it, you can analyze it, and if you are not convinced, you can refute it also. In that book, he says, you can never understand the total plan. You can never understand the purpose of this universe. If you can understand the purpose of the universe, you can understand the purpose of a single life of an ant. Yes, life of an ant is actually connected with the universe. So you cannot understand the life of yourself. So why should you work? Because your body is designed to work. Your mind is designed to work. You are here to work. An ant has its impulse to work. And has it's a design to work. That's why it is working. Similarly, I have an impulse to work. I have an impulse to write. I have an impulse to create fiction. That's why I'm writing. And I'm happy with it. I'm actually contented with my writing. And I never expect anybody to read. Honestly, I don't expect anybody to read. When I was starting to write, I have only 100 readers. You may laugh, only 100 readers. So now I have nearly 1,000 or 5,000 readers in Tamil and 5,000 or 10,000 readers in English. I don't mind. I am not writing for popularity or money or anything. I have an immense pleasure in writing. I have I can have the pleasure of dreaming while I am writing. I can say this like this. My writing is a ride into my unconscious. A ride into my unconscious. That's a very popular postmodern statement. Creative writing is a ride into my unconscious. My unconsciousness is not my unconscious, it is the collective unconscious of my time. So I am going into it. I am discovering something. I am inventing something. That's the reward of my writing. Similarly, the purpose of science, according to Gita, is your personal satisfaction only, your personal content only. You are going to devote your life in science, and you are going to spend a lot of years, nearly 30 to 40 years in science. And sometimes you may lose something for science, some relations, some worldly pleasures. You are going to lose. But you are going to do something which is you are destined to do. That's the message of Gita. That's the answer of the question raised by a friend in Raleigh. That's what's the spirit behind science. The spirit behind science is the spirit of the universe, the spirit of the cosmos. Friends, I want to say this finally. As a writer, I implore all human beings to read literature. I expect everyone to read because I want everyone to dream. Our logic is not so big. Logic, yeah, I know the scientific logic is very big. I read one book written by Karl Popper, The Logic of Scientific Discoveries. It's a very big book. But yeah, I know the logic of science is immensely big, but still dreams are bigger. So for dreaming, you have to read. You can find something amazingly fresh in your dreams. So please read. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for paying such nice attention. I hope you got something out of that. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Would you like to come up and say something?
Okay.
Pranov wrote an essay about our writer here for the newspaper, and I thought you maybe could say a few words.
Hello, my name is Pranav Ravi Kumar. I'm currently a junior in the advanced AET pathway, and I'd like to start out this closing statement by firstly expressing my heartfelt gratitude to Tamil author Mr. Jeyamohan for traveling all the way from India to deliver his speech to us. I enjoyed listening to and reading Stories of the True, a novel where people live true to their purpose beyond materialistic success. This was definitely a memorable moment for me, and I'm glad my fellow peers at the academies got to share this invaluable experience with me. I would like to thank the Academies of Loudoun administration and organization for making this event possible. Without them, this would not have occurred. Finally, If anyone found anything in the speech interesting, there are copies of Stories is True, both in the Academies of Loudoun Research Library and in an online English translated version. Thank you.
Any questions, any comments, friends? We can be open here. I know many of you, but if you have any questions, any comments from Dr. Anyone? We had a discussion about your article, which was so good. And is there anything that you can put together of how people have speech? Like, is there any kind of premonition, I don't want to say it correctly, but that people that are able to find that meaning in life beyond materialistic things that you have found when you were writing the book, like that there's a commonality amongst those people?
Did you hear the question?
Did you hear the question?
I have to say one thing. As I already told, I am truly alien here. So the accent is very difficult for me. So you have to answer question. You have to place question in a low pace. Then only I can understand it. Mm. So yeah. So I have to say one thing. There is a story in this collection. Uh, you may read it. It is about a Dalit officer. Dalit means a low caste person in India. And that story was about him, the plight he had in his life. I I am not a Dalit. So I started to write that story 20 years back in second person as he, and I cannot write that story. I dropped that idea. And few years later, I started the story with first person singular, me. Then I can write that story. That's the difference. Because in the first version, I have no compassion. I have only passion, no compassion. In the second version, I developed a compassion towards that hero, and I could write that story. So what I am propagating through my stories is that compassion. See, the students here belongs to a very advanced community of an advanced nation. But through my book, they can understand the plight of a very ordinary guy from India. They can understand it. Last week, I met with my editor and agent here in New York, Mr. Rohan, and he born and brought up in New York. He has absolutely no root with any Asian countries. But through my stories, he understood the plight of a very common downtrodden person from India. That's what I am creating. Actually, I am creating a common ground of compassion between humans. Yeah, and citizen of New York can easily understand a person from India. It is not kindness. It is not pity or a feeling like that. It is compassion. Actually, he can feel himself as a Dalit. Empathy. That's exactly that word. Thank you. Empathy. He can feel that empathy. So, what's the common ground I am creating is a grand field of empathy. Thank you. Thank you. That's an interesting question. Um, I have to say something from my life. I lost my close friend at the age of 20, 19. He committed suicide. So confronting a death is actually the a precise moment for confrontation with philosophy. No philosophy can answer death, the questions of death. Philosophy will stand stunningly at the door of death. So at the age of 19, after the death of my close friend, I had that philosophical questions and I left my home. I lived nearly 1 year as a beggar in India, as a mendicant and beggar. You may heard that word sannyasi. Sannyasi means mm, wandering monk. So I lived life like that. I lived as a beggar in Kashi, Benares, then Tiruvannamalai and various places. I knew a lot of persons in the beggar life. I met a lot of spiritual teachers at that time. And then I returned. And so I have both kind of quest in life. One is through books, I learned philosophy and I had a quest in life. And another one is through life, I had a quest of philosophy. At 1992, I met with my guru, my teacher, Nitya Chaitanya Yedi. His name is Nitya Chaitanya Yedi. He worked as a teacher of philosophy in Portland University, US, and Ohio University, and various universities. He worked as a teacher, and he was actually a sannyasi. He was my guru. I learned philosophy from him. So constantly, I have a quest for in philosophy, particularly Indian philosophy. Uh, so in Indian philosophy, there's a difference between Western philosophy and Indian philosophy. Western philosophy is pure logic, and it is severed itself from theology and uh, metaphysics. It has no role of metaphysics or theology in philosophy today. But even now, Indian philosophy is mixed with metaphysics and theology. Philosophy should show some way of salvation. That's the viewpoint of India. So I read philosophy books. I wrote philosophy books, and still I am in a quest of philosophy. That's the root of my writing. And you can classify the uh, whole area of literature into two kind of writers are there in the world. One has basic philosophical questions, like um, like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or Thomas Mann or uh, David Foster Wallace in US. They have their own philosophical questions. Some writers don't have their own philosophical questions. They have questions on life only. So I am a writer like that. I have my own philosophical questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeyamohan, for being with us today, all over from India. So thank you so much. And Mrs. Arna Jeyamohan, his wife is also here. And we also have some other guests, like we do have a Vishnupuram literacy circle in USA. So those founders are here, Mr. Sounder, Mrs. Sounder, and then Parani from New Jersey, Mrs. Parani, and also Ravi Kumar. And also would like to extend my thanks to Rajan Somasoundaran. He's not here, but we had, you all know, like we are bringing philosophy, science, everything together. This moment, I also thank all the ACL admin for giving a huge support to have this happen. It's been we know how busy you are with your schedule. You gave us a big opportunity to be here. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeyamohan. And thank you so much for all the admin team. Above all, Ms. France and also Ms. Hiltner for giving a big support to make this happen. Thank you so much, Andrea, for recording all this and giving a big support. All the teachers of all the pathways, thank you so much. I didn't have to come at you to ask, but I just asked you a single word. Can I do this? The overwhelming support, all the teachers from all the pathways. I really appreciate all the things that you did for me. Thank you so much. And moreover, all my friends, you have seen me, these we believe in you. We have huge hopes in you. We have huge dreams in you. Love you all, friends, and soar up high. Go ACL!